Good evening. Welcome to Expat Insights. I'm your host Raju Mandhyan. Here at Expat Insights, we take external views of internal successes by foreigners, expats and immigrants who have made Philippines their home and also make efforts at making Philippines much more beautiful. Today we have two Englishmen as our guests. One of them is Colin Smith and the other one is James Stratton. Both of them lieutenant commanders at the Philippines Coast Guard Auxillary. And they're also directors of the Manila Boat Club. They are here tonight to talk to us about rowing to success in the Philippines in the context of the Manila Boat Club. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Expat Insights.
Thank you, Raju.
Good evening, Raju.
Start telling us about your position at the Philippines Coast Guard. What is that? Lieutenant Commander.
Well, we're very honoured to be invited to the Philippine Coast Guards for our involvement on the Pasig River with the Manila Boat Club. We have the resources that we're able to offer in case of emergency, and we're also in a position of actually monitoring the condition and traffic and what goes on really generally on the Pasig River.
And that gives you the position of Lieutenant Commander, Philippine Coast Guard. Auxiliary.
Yes, yeah. We're very active and ably involved. To that point, our position enables us to be honoured into that position.
What does Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary do?
It is a support organisation for the Philippine Coast Guard itself.
Yeah.
It's entirely voluntary and self-funding.
Yeah.
And it is basically there to back up the Philippine Coast Guard in times of emergency, in terms of bringing extra manpower and also equipment. The equipment that the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary has is entirely purchased through the fundraising efforts of the auxiliary itself. The boat club realised that it needed to be more involved in times of emergencies when we had the terrible storm Ondoy. There was a lot of 2 years ago. Yeah, there was a lot of flooding around Santa Ana, and Colin, myself, and another colleague went down to check that everything was okay at the boat club, and it was very apparent to us that we needed equipment probably to help the local community, which we did not have at that time.
So you borrowed this from the Philippine Coast Guard?
We didn't have it at the time. We did not have a relationship with the Coast Guard Auxiliary at that time. But not long after that, we were lucky to be introduced to the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and as Colin said, we were very honoured to be invited to join them. The boat club is a unique place, being one of the few access points to the River Pasig, and therefore it made a lot of sense for certainly our squadron, the 126 Squadron, to combine with the boat club and have some emergency equipment there, something which we are building on at this moment.
So can anyone offer to be a volunteer? Can I also offer to be a volunteer at the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary?
The Coast Guard Auxiliary is by invitation only.
Oh, okay. I know I have a friend over there, Harold Wolf. He's been there for the longest time.
Yeah.
All right, before we go into what you do at the Manila Boat Club, could you give us a little background about how you came about to be in the Philippines and what do you like about the Philippines?
Oh.
James, you go first this time.
I came over to the Philippines about 4 years ago, having spent most of my career working in the City of London in the financial sector.
4 years ago?
I arrived here 4 years ago, beginning of 2007.
Yeah.
And the reason I came here was to to start up and bring a company here called Asian Innovations.
Right.
And the purpose of that was to bring technologies and products from the UK and Europe into Asia and use the Philippines as a hub in order to find distributors and to expand their businesses.
Now, what has made you make Philippines your home?
Geographical location primarily.
Right.
Secondly, the fact that it is a very largely English-speaking country, which is a great deal easier than learning Vietnamese or Thai or Cambodian. An extremely friendly country. Very much a Western attitude.
Right.
So much easier for me coming from Europe to actually settle down and do business.
And Colin?
I originally came here in 1999 to set up a financial services company here. And it was the end of the Asian crisis. And so my passion at the time was paragliding, and I actually got involved in a paragliding sport and introduced the sport of paragliding to the
Paragliding is the one where you hang onto the boat, or?
It's free flight, where we literally throw ourselves off of a mountain or a hill.
The one with a kite.
With a canopy.
Yeah.
We have a canopy.
Right,
you know,
right.
like a chute. Yeah?
Right, yeah.
And my involvement then enabled me to introduce a trainer into the Philippines from California, and consequently we trained some Filipinos.
Yeah.
And from then, that was 10 years ago.
1999.
When I came back in 2007, 2008, I was honoured again to meet up with some of the people who, since then it was a bit of an underground movement, shall we say, and the people got together and we managed to incorporate last year the Philippine Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association, which has gone from strength to strength. It's a sport for the Filipinos. They have now entered into the Asian Sea Games, and again they're doing very, very well. My love for the Philippines then was immense, and
this was still in 1999.
Yeah, so I went back to the UK then to continue my work in financial services, and very, very good. My best friend then shared many of my stories. I shared with him, and he eventually married a Filipina back in 2000.
Is he still in town, or he's gone?
No, he was still in the UK, but he visited the Philippines and fell in love with a Filipina and decided to marry the Filipina. Being my best friend, he invited me to be the best man, and I managed to steal several days from work, 4 of which were travelling, and so I spent 3 days here. I was the best man at his wedding, and to cut a long story short, I married the maid of honour. So fell in love, and with communication I invited her back to England. We got married in England, far too cold for her, so we came back here in 2008.
So how warm is it for you here with your Filipino wife now?
Well, warm in many senses. In many senses. The weather is far more congenial, and the warmth of the people, which is really one of the main things that brought me back here as well. And consequently, we now have a 2-year-old boy. And we have a little boy due in 2 weeks' time as well. So
you know it's a boy. The second one that's coming is a boy.
We know it's a boy.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm very much here to stay. I enjoy the life here and being with Filipino people.
Now, both of you, James and Colin, you both have a background in investments and financial services, no? And I don't know how much you're still involved into it, but you have made a move into the Manila Boat Club and into rowing and bringing rowing as a sport to the Philippines. Can you just give me an idea on what made you transit from financial services and other aspects of other background of yours to rowing? What made you move?
It's not really a transition to rowing. It's rowing is something I did when I was at college in the UK, and I was at Eton College, and rowing was a very strong sport there.
Right.
I didn't do it after leaving school, and when I got here, there was a good friend of mine who pointed out that there was a rowing club in Manila, which I completely disbelieved, and everybody I talked to completely disbelieved as well. However, eventually I did find it, and when I walked into the rowing club, I was totally amazed to find this old colonial building.
Was it as good as anyone in the UK, any rowing
Absolutely
club?
not. It's something. This particular clubhouse was built in 1932.
Yeah.
And really nothing much has changed since then.
Wow.
When I arrived there, it was extremely run down. There was a very small membership. There were probably only 4 or 5 active members. It was basically dying on its feet.
Right.
I joined, saw that there was tremendous potential, started talking about it to friends who didn't really believe me, but they came.
Yeah.
They also fell in love with it and started the rowing.
Yeah.
Colin was the third person
Right.
to join up. Well, I was first, there was another, and then Colin. He's become even more passionate about it than I have, I think.
Yeah.
But between all the sort of relatively new members in the last 2 years, there is a huge amount of enthusiasm and determination to rebuild the club and to expand rowing into the community and throughout the Philippines and make it more
Let me
popular.
ask quickly, because we are coming to a break right now. Let me quickly ask Colin. Colin, how and why did you make a shift from financial services to rowing? In a minute. Yeah.
No shift at all. The two marry very, very well. We meet a lot of people through the MBC in the expat community and the Filipino community as well. As James says, I was introduced to rowing. I'd never rowed before, but some of my organisational skills and my passion for sport, if I find a new sport, enabled me to be invited to become boat captain of the club, and since then really we've got involved in international regattas and many other things that are going very, very well and lending great success to the Philippines with the MBC. Okay,
let's take a 1 minute break and we'll come back and talk to you about the future of rowing in the Philippines. We're still with James and Colin from London and the Manila Boat Club. I'm Raju Mandhyan. Let's take a few minutes break and we'll come back and talk to them further about rowing in the Philippines. Stay with us. Welcome back to Expat Insights. I'm your host Raju Mandhyan. We are still talking with James Stratton and Colin Smith of the Manila Boat Club, and we are talking about rowing in the Philippines. And Colin was just telling us about his transition from financial services to rowing. So Colin, go on. Now tell us about the Manila Boat Club and where's it going from where it is now?
Okay, well, as James mentioned earlier, when we found it, there was a very, very scant membership.
Yeah.
And through James's organisation in membership, creating membership there, we now have 50 members, and there's a good proportion an equal proportion of expats and Filipinos involved in this. We've gone from minor efforts to great success, and we actually invited and sponsored the Philippine national rowing team, who need very much a lot of support in this country because they have a tremendous amount of talent, and we saw that we were in a position to be able to sponsor several of their national rowers and took them to Hong Kong. And we actually brought back, for the first time in 115 years, gold medals for the
Philippines.
In
115 years.
For the Manila Boat Club. Yeah. There are one or two individuals within...
For Manila Boat Club or for the Philippines rowing team? For the Philippines rowing...
Both.
Both,
in the sense that it was under the MBC banner, but it was also under the banner of the Philippine Rowing Association, who have, in the past, have achieved Olympic standard in that as well. And really what it's doing is allowing certain rowers within the national team to come forward and to be recognised and to have greater opportunity to be able to prove themselves in what they do. And they managed to win several gold medals as well, and had we not sponsored them to go, they would never have achieved that either. So I think we're enabling that certainly in the Philippine community here. We also went to Sri Lanka earlier this year, and we entered the Far East Asian Rowing Association Games, and our boatman Benny Rodoy came in with a first again.
A first of
in a singles rowing event.
Just one person.
One person rowing with 2 oars. Yes, and he came in first gloriously, and we had a lot of glory for him there as well. So again, it is something for the Philippines and the Philippine people, being as Benny is a Filipino in that respect as well. So we brought back a lot of glory, and we continue to do that. For our efforts, we have now been invited to host the Far Eastern Asian Rowing Association Games in 2012 to be held here in the Philippines.
Asia or worldwide?
The Far Eastern Asian Rowing Association Games.
How popular is rowing in the Philippines compared to other sports?
Rowing in the Philippines is relatively unknown.
Yeah.
Currently there are only 2 ways of rowing in the Philippines. One is if you're part of the national team.
Yeah.
And secondly, the other is if you row with the Manila Boat Club.
Right.
Therefore, the Manila Boat Club has a great responsibility in actually introducing rowing to the Philippine nation.
Right.
To that end, we've been very lucky. We've been approached by the Semirara Mining Corporation, who, as part of their mine rehabilitation project, are planning a rowing club on one of the old coal mines in Semirara Island.
Right.
Initially, that will be used for staff recreation, but it will then expand later, I believe, to encompass competitions, international competitions, etc. Or we certainly hope so. So that will be the next rowing club. Some years ago, there used to be a rowing club on Tal Lake, but the conditions there are a little bit difficult. The waves get a bit too high. You need relatively calm water. The Manila Boat Club itself is at a stage where the membership is growing quickly and needs to start building up new boats. So we're looking at ways of financing that. Rowing for youth is extremely important. Rowing is a sport where you are taught discipline and teamwork. Basically, it just doesn't work unless everybody is working together.
Right.
And this is an extremely good skill to bring to the children. Students are very strong. We are lucky we have Ateneo who train at the Manila Boat Club weekly. There used to be other universities. UP, also De La Salle used to row there. Sadly, they stopped. We're trying very hard to get them back. We would like to have
UP and La Salle stopped.
They stopped rowing.
Ateneo
yes.
is still on.
Ateneo is still rowing. But we'd like particularly to get De La Salle back, and then we can have a big competition on the river between De La Salle and Ateneo, a bit like Oxford, Cambridge in London.
No, but let me ask you questions that you mentioned. Number one is Manila Boat Club. I want to know where and how you row, and what does it take to go rowing for an individual like me? That's the first question. The second one, before I forget, you mentioned Semirara does it for staff recreation, but beyond that, do they have another agenda, another big picture agenda? So let's go with the first one. Where do you go rowing? How do you go rowing?
The rowing takes place at the boat club itself, which is down by Santa Ana.
For rowing?
The water is, believe it or not, the River Pasig.
Oh, I thought that was kind of all stuffed up with garbage and.
Yes, that is a very common conception of most people, and particularly Filipinos, that the Pasig is nothing more than an open sewer full of garbage. Sometimes it is like that, but not very often. There has been a fantastic program of dredging in the last year, which has changed the nature of the river. It has now become more tidal. There are certainly problems which are being addressed both at government level and also by foundation level to clean up the esteros and to stop rubbish and waste going into the river.
What is esteros, James?
The small streams that come into the ditches that come into the river.
Chutes that come in from the neighboring.
Well, just small streams, really.
Right.
Because where people live alongside, and it's much easier for them just to chuck the garbage in the water than it is to dispose of it properly.
So how much distance does a rowing team cover? Do they run the whole length of Pasig, or?
Well, we row 3 times a week, probably about 6 a.m. in the morning, and we'll go from Santa Ana. We'll row all the way up to McCarty Park and back, and that's a distance of about 6 miles.
Minutes?
6 miles, about an hour and a half.
All right. Okay.
We do longer distance rows on certain days. We're about to do a row up to Laguna Lake. There and back, that'll be about 20 miles.
From Pasig to Laguna Lake?
Yeah, from Santa Ana to Laguna Lake
to
the lighthouse.
A couple of days?
No, we do it in the morning.
Yeah?
And it takes us about an
hour
and 3/4 up
as an
there.
ordinary citizen of the Philippines, I can come to Manila Boat Club and take a ride all the way to Laguna?
We wouldn't suggest that. We wouldn't suggest that to start with. It might kill you.
Well,
you need a bit of practice. You need to get fit.
But it is possible.
It's certainly possible.
And within one day you can go and come back.
Yeah, you do it in the morning. No problem at all.
I should plan that for the Holy Week then, in that case. No?
Exactly.
So how big is the team, and what's the financial involvement for one to start rowing? Is there any for a civilian, not for the Philippine national team?
One of the other benefits of rowing is that you can do it on an individual basis, or you can do it on a team basis.
Right.
It's more fun as a team.
Wow, I'm sure it is, yeah.
And we row, we either row single sculls or
single sculls?
Which is single scull, which is just one man
skull
in his boat.
As in skull?
As in, well, this skull is a name for the oar.
Oh, with an S-C-U-L.
Yeah, S-C-U-L-L.
Yeah, okay.
You can either row as a single scull, but the problem with that is you've got to keep looking behind you to see where you're going. Or we can take pairs and fours, and you have a cox. Basically, you've got the driver, so he'll
There's
drive
a
you.
navigator.
Which is quite important on the Pasig because you get a lot of lilies coming down apart from the river traffic.
Semirara. Let's go to Semirara. You said staff recreation, and where is Semirara?
Semirara is a small island which produces a great amount of coal for the Philippines.
Is it south
and
of
it's just south of Mindoro Island.
Okay, not far.
And it's not far.
Yeah.
It's basically Semirara Coal is run by the Konsunji Group, and they are very strong into their social responsibilities, and certainly as far as mine rehabilitation is concerned. So this is an extremely exciting project. I mean, they're not just doing rowing, they're probably doing a bit of kayaking, we hope, a bit of dragon boating, they're doing some rock climbing, and my impression is that they are planning to create this more towards a conference centre later on, but they're just starting it off as staff recreation.
Well, do all mines do this, or is this a good idea for all other mining companies to do this?
If a mining company leaves a big hole in the ground, we would love to help them make a rowing lake out of it.
What do you mean mining companies leave a big hole? I thought mines dig into mountains.
Mines dig into mountains, that's true, but you get open cast mining where you basically just dig down and take all the minerals out, and you leave a big hole. Holes are very valuable things. You can put a lot of things back into them.
Right.
In the Philippines, mostly what happens with holes is you put the garbage back into them, which is not good. However, mining itself, as I always say, starts with the community and ends with the community, and at the end of a project you have a wonderful opportunity to recreate something. So you can reform the earth to the benefit of the community and actually leave something which is an ongoing legacy for the community to earn a living from or to enjoy. Semirara are showing the way in this. Most mining companies, if not all mining companies, are obligated to replace and to enhance the land after they finish mining.
So it's giving back to society.
It certainly
what
gives
it
back
has
to
taken.
society.
And then rowing also is an avenue for them to do it, because
Rowing is an avenue, and rowing is a method by which you can say help the youth, train the youth, bring up the discipline. And
you do have some pictures of rowing in the Manila Boat Club. You know, I'm going to ask the studio to put them up. But while they're putting them up, can we talk about teamwork? You mentioned rowing kind of inculcates teamwork much more than other sport. How do you compare and contrast that to basketball, for example?
Well, very much so. I mean, as James mentioned, we have single sculls, double sculls, where there are two people rowing.
Yeah.
We have fours, and we also have an 8.
Yeah. Can you hold those pictures, baby? Just steady them for a while. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go on. Sorry.
This is the Filipino team and ourselves actually in Hong Kong, where you know we managed to find gold medals and cups and a lot of success.
Is that you and James, or it's James and you?
There's actually Colin and me sitting there in the front row with the person in the blue shirt, Hugo Ray, who was the second person to join the club.
Oh, you were up in the front with the hat.
I'm in the front with the hat.
Yeah. And that's the Philippine national team. That's a skull.
That is the national
team. That's an 8. That's a skull. Yes, with a cox. And again, as James was saying, this is teamwork. Have you noticed the oars are in place? They're hitting the water at the same the same time. We're rowing, and it really does develop teamwork in what you need to do here. It doesn't work in any other way. Yeah. So and this is achieved usually in a
This
four.
is Pasig River.
This is the Pasig River. Yeah. And there's an example of a 4-man team there. Yeah. And again, that's probably one of the...
Slowly. Can you move the pictures a bit slowly? Yeah. Hold the Pasig. Yeah.
This is a very good example of developing teamwork in a 4, and then to go back down to maybe a double and a single.
That part of the river does look clean. That's near Makati, or that's just outside the boat club?
That's from Mandaluyong. It's the view from my apartment actually that looks down to the river there. Yeah. And yes, it does look rather clean there.
Yeah, it does. Okay,
and tranquil too.
Yeah, peaceful. Yeah, thanks. So go ahead. You were talking about teamwork and 4 people. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. As I say, four is often a very good starting point for people to learn to row.
What part of the Pasig River is that?
This is at Santa Ana, just down by from the old racetrack there. And
is this where the Manila Boat Club is?
This is the Manila Boat Club, and just you can slightly see the clubhouse. You can see the roof of the clubhouse behind there. An old colonial building with a beautiful veranda, and we have a lawn in front of that as well. It's a good starting point for us to row from. And this is one of the local boats there that is used. It's not one of the sculls, but
it's a bunker.
This is just
when you say a local boat, it's different from.
This is a local fisherman boat. Actually, they just.
Oh, it's not a bunker.
They just stopped up there to do some repairs. I think.
Oh, that's the Manila Boat.
Yeah.
We have a good relationship. This is that is the Coast Guard's should we say our inauguration at the National Convention, which was held recently there.
Yeah. So, what's your long-term dream for the Manila Boat Club and the Philippines rowing? The sports in the Philippines, the rowing sports in the Philippines. What's your long-term
We'd like to see a strong youth program with schools all participating in rowing and having rowing as part of their sports curriculum. We'd like to see that go through into the colleges and the universities. We'd like to see strong university rowing. And we'd like the boat club to be a conduit for potential new members of the national rowing team. We'd like to see rowing clubs springing up all over the Philippines.
Right, just like it's happening with Semirara.
Like it's happening in Semirara. That is hopefully going to be the first. We expect to, we're certainly hoping that rowing will become significant, much as it is in other countries. When we go visiting other countries, even if we're going to Colombo in Sri Lanka, we're going to Calcutta in December.
Calcutta?
Calcutta in India.
Oh wow, that's my home country,
Yeah, we're competing there.
Oh, them.
They have very old clubs with fantastic facilities, and they have big youth programs, and it makes us very envious, and we will try to emulate them.
Is it because Calcutta is by the ocean, or there are more rivers or lakes there? What would be the reason? What would be the science behind it being more popular in Calcutta than in Manila? Manila is surrounded by water.
Manila is surrounded by water.
What is the reason
you can't have too rough water, so because the waves come in over the boat.
Oh, because
they're
it's a
very
tiny low level boat.
Okay. It is purely enthusiasm and a desire to expand rowing, or the lack of it, that has prevented the growth in this country.
Okay. So that's your mission in life, to bring back rowing to
the Philippine Rowing Association, which has been championed and led by Benji Ramos for many years.
Benji Ramos?
Benji Ramos,
Related to the former president?
No.
Okay.
Different part of the family.
Okay.
He has been struggling and doing his best with the Philippine Rowing Association, but like all these things, it needs money. Everything needs money. Right. The Philippines concentrate on basketball as a national sport and boxing. Whereas we feel they need to refocus to other sports. They'd be very good at football, and also we think they'd be very good at rowing.
All right, we are going to come to a break very soon, and we still have one more minute. Colin, what's your dream? Why is this your dream? Can you share that with us in 1 minute? Then we'll come back and ask you about the other things that you do for the country. Why are you doing this?
Because it keeps me very fit. And
all right, I can see that.
Thank you. But more to the point, what it does is it helps us to become more involved with the community, and we make wonderful friends. We have a wonderful relationship with everybody that comes to the MBC, and it's not just for rowing. We have social events there as well. You may have seen a little clip there earlier of something else that we were put into the community. We had a children's program there.
I missed that, the Christmas party thing.
We had a wonderful Christmas party that we were able to give to the local barangay children there over Christmas, and this is an event that we're going to hold every year. And it enables us to give something back to the community, and really I think what we would like to achieve is international status for the
Right,
Philippines
right,
in the sport of rowing by
Yeah.
means of creating
Yeah.
Olympic champions.
Yeah.
And I think we have every chance of doing that for the future.
All right, thank you. Can we take that break and we'll come back and talk to James and Colin. And they have an event coming up in April and we'll take that up right after the break. I'm your host Raju Mandhyan. Stay with us. Welcome back to Expat in Science. We are still talking with James Stratton and Colin Smith of the Manila Boat Club. And they have an upcoming event in April and it's called Atlas Obscura. I have no idea what that means. Maybe you can tell me what that means and why are you doing this?
Atlas Obscura is offering an Obscura day where we have, they have over 82, 87 cities globally around the world that will be holding events on the same day that will be doing something a little obscure. I mean,
What does it mean, a little obscure? Something unknown, unseen, something strange, something magical?
It's something that's maybe that needs to be brought to the forefront of people's minds in the sense of something that's been achieved in the past or is happening at the present.
Or something that people have forgotten or
Exactly. Well, they will be giving, at various places around the world, they will be giving tours around museums and places of interest.
Yeah.
We are hosting this, I believe we're the only people in Asia to actually be in part of this. And we are doing something a little bit different by means of giving people the opportunity of actually rowing down the Pasig River. We're calling it a moonlight row. And
that means any citizen from the street can just come to Manila Boat Club and take a ride from Manila Boat Club all the way to Pasig?
Absolutely. There are limited places. We have a few boats there where...
what is obscure about that, doing that? Or is the fact that you row a boat, that's obscure, or the fact that you...
Well, I think it's going to give a totally different view of the place in which people live here, because most of us are aware of going through the streets in a populated area full of jeepneys and sounds of their horns blasting and various other things. Like to row down the Pasig River is quite a tranquil and quiet event. The only thing that you will experience will be the splashing of the oars as you go through the water and the occasional hellos that you get from people that we pass, the children, and we have a lot of spectators as we go along, and it will be in the evening, so we will have lanterns on.
April 9,
which
is a Saturday.
Yes.
4 p.m. to
4 p.m. till 9 p.m.
Free.
Free. There is a nominal $2 charge in order to make sure that
$2.
$2. Yes.
I don't think people have dollars in this country.
It's the $2 charge is if you
just kidding,
if you
yes.
book a place online, but basically yes, it's free.
Okay.
So if they like to contact us through information or info at Manila Boat Club.
Camelot, okay.
If they like to contact us there or directly, I'm sure we'll have the information available to them here. Then we can make provision for them. They will be going in couples out in a 4-man boat with a cox.
Yeah.
They have the option to row or to literally sit in and enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
We'll be rowing just a couple of miles.
Yeah.
And we'll be making a few trips.
How many people can you accommodate? How many couples or boats can you accommodate on that day?
We're taking out 3 or 4 boats, so it's opportunity for about 8 couples to go out.
That's it. And so 20 minutes ride, that's it?
Yep, for the evening. So it will be first come, first served in that. We may hold some...
Sign me up and my 2 sons. So that's not a couple, that's a triplet. Is it okay? A trio is okay?
You can certainly bring guests as well. And we're inviting those rowers to bring a couple of guests because we will be having a little cocktail party that is hosted through Hendrick's Gin, and we have created a
Pasig Obscura cocktail.
A Pasig Obscura cocktail, which I'm sure everybody would like to
like
partake.
the Singapore slang.
Absolutely. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And just to get us in the mood for the evening then.
Colin, is this the website?
Yes.
www.obscura day Manila event Bright, B-R-I-T. What's B-R-I-T? That's the soap or Scotch Brite? Eventbrite.
I think it's just a brighter website that they can look at.
I think maybe Obscura de Manila would get you there right away.
It certainly would, yes. And if you Google that, then you will certainly find it. If you look up Obscura Day, Manila.event-bright.com, and you can go straight on to the information that's there.
All right. One thing that's been kind of in the back of my mind is you said that you want to give back to the community and you love the country, but my question would be, why would you do this as expats? What about you being an Englishman who just made Philippines your home, do this? What inside of you wants to do this for this country? What has the country done for you to want to give back so much to this country?
It's the Philippines country. It's their country. We are guests here, and made very, very welcome here. You know, one thing that's always gone through my mind in all the times that I have ever been here is that the warmth and generosity of the country from that point of view, and it allows you to want to give back.
And you have family here.
I have family here, so I have no intention of
going
going
in your
anywhere.
roots. How about you, James?
Well, the Philippines is infectious, as Colin says. You know, there's the warmth and the generosity.
Yeah.
Having been brought up for myself in the UK, basically people brought up in the West.
Yeah.
We've been very privileged. We've had a very sort of a wealthy lifestyle. We've had a rich lifestyle. We've had fantastic education.
Yeah.
A lot of it has been provided by our governments because they've got very good social programs.
Yeah.
And I think it's very obvious to us here that this is something that has not yet developed in the Philippines. We see signs that it is developing.
Sorry?
We see signs that there is much more of a social program of developing in the Philippines now. But it's going to take time. We, I think, as expats, can do just a little bit in our own way.
Yeah.
But we can target it into areas which are very close to us. So around the Santa Ana area, we do that. We're slightly expanding our horizons by going with the 126 Squadron, Philippine Coast Guard Auxillary.
Yeah.
It's an extremely rewarding experience.
Yeah.
We get an enormous amount of pleasure of putting something into the community, and we hope that the community gets something back from that as well.
I'm sure it will.
So you could, in a way, almost say it's us being, a little bit selfish, but we enjoy doing it.
It's spiritual selfishness.
Spiritual selfishness, exactly. I mean, we had, as you just saw briefly, a little poster on this Christmas party for the children. I mean, we started this off when we were just going to do 30 local children from the barangay. It then expanded to 50.
Area, in the
no, that was just around the boat club.
The boat club area.
which is it's not a wealthy area, and literally when we first started rowing there, we had to fight our way through the garbage because they were picking through the garbage. Yeah. We've got that cleared up now. We had the children there. As I said, it started at 30. It ended up more like 100. We were
100 kids.
100 kids came.
Wow.
We were able to combine that with a health program. We gave them toothbrushes and toothpaste and flannels and soap and towels.
I wish you had pictures of that.
Yeah. We have, and they came and they had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we know that next year it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and much more popular.
Yeah.
Our problem is that you can't have every single child, although we'd love to have every single child.
You can't change the world, but we can change it a bit every
But
time.
we can change it little bit by bit.
Now, question is, you lived in this country for a while, and maybe you'll go back home, maybe you won't go back home. But if you were to ever go back home, what beauty of this country would you take back? What cultural beauty, what spiritual beauty of this country would you take back home and apply to United Kingdom?
The most significant thing that I have discovered in the Philippines is family values.
You'll take that back.
And it's been lost in the West, to be honest. It has
or
really
in
been
Europe.
lost.
Or in
But
Europe.
here you have very strong family values.
How about you, Colin?
I agree with James entirely, but also it's allowed me to slow down with all the rushing about of the Western life.
Yeah.
The Filipino people offer something that's quite unique about the ability to not be so concerned.
It's called the mañana or the bahala na attitude.
Wonderfully.
Yeah.
Yes. And
all right, so thank you
so.
very much for being on Expat Insights, and thank you for doing all these wonderful things through the sport of rowing for the Philippines. And if there's anything I have missed asking you about rowing and about your life in the Philippines, you both have 30 seconds each, and that's your camera. Please go ahead and invite. And I wish you luck with Obscura Day. I'll try and be there. with my two sons.
Well, thank you, Raju, for allowing us to put our views across. No, I think you've covered just about everything. But just to reiterate that if anybody is interested in rowing, just send an email which will come to Colin and me, and that is info@manilaboatclub.com. And we're very happy to see people. We certainly have a program that all guests get the first 3 rows completely free.
I'm going to be there. Okay.
As James says, they are completely free. You know, we just want to introduce more people to our sport and to share the enjoyment that we have here.
They put some muscles into their back.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, you don't build up muscles; you just build up a lot of stamina and become quite fit.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do that. So thank you very much for being on Expat Insights, and good luck in all your ventures.
Thank you.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, is James Stratton and Colin Smith of UK. They are from the Manila Boat Club. And I'm your host, Raju Mandhyan. Thank you for watching Expat Insights. Good night and mabuhay, and we'll see you next Sunday.